I like people to know why I've chosen a particular topic at one time or another. The reason I've chosen this one, and this lesson is living one day at a time, is because repeatedly this week, people unrelated to each other would mention that to me. You know, I said, how do you do that? They said, well, I just try to live one day at a time. And as I put the lesson together, I thought, you know what, on one level, there's not there's a great doctrinal principle that nobody's ever heard of, and I discovered it on Wednesday or something. These are all things we know, but we don't do very well is really how that comes together. And so you say, well, what does that really mean to live one day? We all live one day at a time. Well, I mean, as far as taking our breaths in and out, certainly. But what happens is psychologically, we're always looking down the road, 2 weeks from now, next month, a year, boy, what's going to happen? And we fret about things, about something in the future. And I just put down a number of things. You may have other things that came to your mind. People worry about and genuine challenges with chronic illness, heart disease and cancer, and family finances maybe are really tenuous. World events, what's China going to do? What's Russia going to do? The national debt, the future, political decline, social decline, family relationships may be on the rocks, or maybe your kids you're worried about, or personal safety, or the environment. You say, well, what about global warming and all the stuff, deforestation? Teens worry about peer pressure, body image, grades, their future, the earth, everything that adults worry about. And so it's all around us. You see, we're in tenuous times. Christians, we've always been in tenuous times. Everybody is always in tenuous times. We just don't realize it. We don't think about it that way. And so I thought, well, what about this idea of living one day at a time? And just a handful of principles that help us refocus and get our heads looking in the right direction so we're just not pulled in 15 different ways. The first thing is, and say, Paul, why do you start with, remember you don't control tomorrow? The reason I start there is that's what I try to do. And I'm always thinking, if I do these 15 things and this and that, and I'll work it out and out. And I don't know how many times I had to, bump my head into the brick wall. I said, Paul, you're not in control of stuff. You're just barely in control of you. And that's why the Christian virtues add your faith, virtue, knowledge, to knowledge, self-control. Because who we really control, if we're going to control anything, is us. And so as we think about rebooting our mind in this direction, you say, yeah, but all this stuff. And depending on the website, everybody has different numbers, but they kind of are in this 85 to 90% of the things we worry about never come to pass. And so Psychology Today and HuffPost and various very responsible organizations said, here's all the surveys they've done. Think about all the things we worry about. What they're saying is 90% never happen. We just worry, yeah, but what if, and it could be, and my heart's racing and all this stuff, or depressed and all these different things. And then, well, you got the other 10%. It might. Well, sometimes it does happen. But you're able to handle it in a reasonable way. And then 3 to 5% is going to happen regardless if you do anything or not. And so I got to worry about it. It's just going to happen. What if I just turn my problems over to God? God, I'll do what I can, and you're responsible for the rest. Oh, Paul, how long should you have been doing that? I should have been doing that forever, but that's hard to give up. If I just do these 29 things, it'll all work out this one way. But isn't that what Jesus said in Matthew 6, down verse 34? Do not be anxious for tomorrow. Yeah, but what might happen and this and that? He said, each day has enough trouble of its own. That is, why are you borrowing tomorrow's trouble and plunking it in today? You got plenty to do today, and when you get to tomorrow, there'll be plenty tomorrow. That have that balance. I'm not going to be stressing and obsessing about what might happen, and just deal with the things that I can deal with. In James 4:14, it talks about, come you that say, today and tomorrow, we got these business plans, we're going to go into the city, and here's the deals we'll make. And he said, you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You ought to say, if the Lord will. And we all know that. How's that work? Well, yeah, but there's this stuff. And rather than saying, Lord, I've done what I can do, I'm not in control of that stuff. That's what you're in control of. And I'm going to inhale and exhale and let you be in control. Because Psalm 31:15, David said, my times are in thy hand. The reality is he controls everything anyhow. Yeah, but what if? Think about the what ifs. What if Mount Rainier blows up? What if North Korea attacks? What if the West Coast falls into the ocean? I'm not in control of those things. There's not a lot I could do. If we all move to Kansas, great. Now the tornadoes blow us into Maine and Massachusetts and Rhode Island. We'll go down to Texas. We were down there rebuilding homes after floods that people repeatedly lose everything. This is a nutty world, but we have a God of peace. And so it's just encouraging to us, God, I'm going to do what I can do, and I'm going to do what I can do today that makes sense. Proverbs 16, verse 3, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he'll establish your plans. That is, make reasonable plans, do good things. And so I thought, well, what kind of things? And so I just went online. Red Cross and FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, says, isn't this good news? We've never heard this before. It'd be good to have 3 days emergency food and water, and even better to have 2 weeks. What's up? Man, I got to get started on it this afternoon. They've been saying that for decades. It's just good to do. So you don't have to get excited and wobble about it and gasp and whatnot and clutch your throat. It's just good to do. And I've been talking about it. Well, why don't you just jump right in and do it? Well, my thought was we just buy a bunch of food and stick it somewhere. It's not like in Egypt they find grains after 3,000 years. You got to rotate that stuff. And so you have a plan. It just makes sense. Now, let me just tell you, you don't have to even obsess about that. You should have a couple of days. It'd be good to have 2 weeks of water in your house, and you probably already do. It's called the water heater. And even if the water mains are damaged outside, you just turn off our water heater right above the water heater, the shutoff valve. You got 50 gallons of water. Even if you use a gallon a day you got plenty. You don't have to stress about it. You just think, well, I'd like to know more. Well, great. Go online, and Red Cross and FEMA both have websites. Say, oh yeah, you want to plan, get flashlights and some warm clothes, but it's just reasonable stuff. You don't have to be nutty, because I'm not in control of tomorrow. I'm just in control of me. A French philosopher, Michael de Montaigne, probably pronounced Montaigne, said, my life has been filled with terrible misfortune, most of which never happened. Oh, okay, there you go. William Shakespeare, in his play Julius Caesar, Act 2, Scene 2, is commonly quoted as, a coward dies 1,000 times. A brave man dies but once. That is, you don't have to, yeah, but they may get me, and what happens, and I'm going to run out of, and a comet may hit the world, and we'll die like dinosaurs. Like, God's in control. We're fine. I'm just not going to over-obsess about what about tomorrow. I'll think about it, but I don't have to go nutty about it. And number 2, Make today a premium. Think about enjoying, doing the best you can. What today is Sunday, tomorrow's Monday. Each day that you look at, I want that day to be a really good day. Why? Because today will never return. You just have this little bit of time to work with. Ecclesiastes 9:10, whatever your hand finds to do, do with your mind. You know, you talk to people, hey, what you doing? Oh, just wasting time. That's life. It's just like the sands of time are running through your fingers. Ephesians 5:16, make the most of every opportunity. When you talk to people, when you meet them. In fact, I mentioned Damaris, as the first time she worshiped with us a couple weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. I just meet people at the back and how you doing, how you come to be with us and whatnot. And her, like I mentioned, her English is somewhat tenuous, and my Spanish is almost limited to ordering soup in a restaurant, so it's pretty dicey there. But as we're talking, I said, "How did you come to be with us?" And and they got a phone app, so we can talk back and forth. But she said, "I wanted to worship with the true church and take communion. To do that, she had to ride a bus to get here an hour and a half to 2 hours." You go, wow, just great things. Making the most of every opportunity. Psalm 118, verse 24, Psalmist said, "This is the day the Lord has made. I'll rejoice and be glad in it." That God has planned our salvation. We were wretched, and he said, "I love you, and I'll wash you and make you clean. Lift up your heads and rejoice." And think about this. Regardless of what your bank account really looks like, what if the bank called you, let's say on Monday morning, and said, "We see you are having daily deposits of $86,400. You could say, is this a drug cartel? How's it getting in there? They said, "Well, this is just your, Warren Buffett wanted to bless you, however it is." And he said, "What?" That every day, 86,000 plus. He said, "Man, that is so good." That's over 31 million a year, over 300 million in 10 years. You say, "Paul, why do you mention that?" Because we are given that every day in seconds. There happens to be 86,400 seconds in every day. How do you use them? You need to use some of them to rebuild and recharge so you can take control and do your best at your next task. But rather than just say, "Oh, I'm just bored and got nothing to do," think, how can I bless somebody else? How can I serve God? How can I cheer somebody up? You might encourage one person today. "How are you doing?" Tell them you appreciate them. Spending quality time with your family. Watching football is fine, but while your wife is making lunch and you're in watching TV and the kids are on their phone, that is time and you are together, but it's not quality time. You're not interacting as a family. Make one person happy today. Tell someone you love them. Pray for a soul today. Have fun. Laugh. Tell God what you're grateful for. And I appreciate Daniel's comment. Here's baskets, as far as gratefulness, there's just a couple slips of paper in the bottom, but here's what I want, God. Well, it's overflowing. And so we forget about doing that. God, I am so thankful for. And then savor the moment. I just look outside. The sun is shining. Man, that is great. Look out there, it's blue sky. That is great. And at the moment, there's no snow. That is great. Our Colorado family, there's a preacher in a town an hour away. They got 8 inches of snow. And so this morning, Wayne and Jenny and kids are driving up into the hills so he could preach a little tiny congregation. And you just pray for them. But it's beautiful. And I'm glad they've got the snow and we don't have the snow. And so... but think about being a lifelong learner. There's always being interested and curious and growing. and finding beauty in small things. And so in every area of life, we're making each day a premium. One person said, in the end, it's not the years in your life that count. It's the life in your years. So make it count. Rejoice. Demonstrate gratitude. Living one day at a time. And think about this. Another principle, there's enough for today. Yeah, but what about, if I live to be 111, am I going to run out of money? I don't know. There's nobody in my family. My brother said, I got my plans. In my first 100 years, I'm going to do this. In my second 100 years, I'm going to do that. In my third 100 years. I said, Jack, do you realize that in our family tree, there's not a lot of 300-year-old people? I mean, you need to make some plan with the time we've got right now. And here's what we can do today without obsessing about the future. Matthew 6:11, in that model prayer, Jesus says, pray this way. Give us this day our daily bread. I'm not worried about what's going to happen if they run out of grain in Ukraine, breadbasket of Europe. And I'm not in control of those things. It's interesting that even in Sinai, in Exodus 16:16 and following, that Moses told the people, go out and gather the manna each day for what you need. And eat it that day, and don't leave any left over. Well, people say, well, we got to save it up. We need more. And it would just go bad, get foul and worms and whatnot. God's saying, I'm going to give you every day what you need. Yeah, but, well, do we trust him? Yeah. We just have to relearn that and become comfortable with that. Psalm 34 and in verse 16, those who seek the Lord won't lack any good thing. That God has a plan to take care of us even when we don't see it. 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 8. With food and clothing we shall be content. Wait a minute. I need my sports TV. I need my air-conditioned car. With that and about 5,000 other things I'd be content. The Bible says really what we need is food and clothing. We need to be sheltered and you need food. Everything else is just extras. And you think about, well, if you have some major earthquake and we had COVID and there's a run on toilet paper. We better stock it up. Get 50,000 rolls. Goodness. And then you get over the hump and it's fine. And God's going to take care of us. We just don't have to have all the frills. In fact, I talked about, even if you get in a thing, because where we live, the power goes out every winter. But it only stays out for a couple hours or sometimes 3 days, but it doesn't stay out 3 months. And so, well, do you have enough to eat? Well, you can get by on one meal a day. 1 meal a day. We should have 3 meals a day plus dessert and appetite. You don't have to have that. We're just saying there's always enough. In Hebrews chapter 13 and in verse 5, be content with what you have, for he himself has said, I will never desert you, nor will I forsake you. And a story was told about a daughter who was going to school, maybe elementary school, and had forgotten her lunch. And Dad said, no worries, I'll bring it to you. And so she's fretting about it. It's 10:30 and Dad hadn't come with lunch. At 11 o'clock, Dad hadn't come with lunch. 11:45, Dad hadn't showed up with lunch. 12 o'clock, Dad walks in. And, well, Dad, I was worrying where you been and such as that. He said, why were you worried? He said, well, I needed lunch. I said I'd bring it. Yeah, but where is it? He said, it's right here. I brought it to you when you needed it. You go, huh. God will never desert us. And so I thought about all those things are true. So now how do you do that kind of things? And so there's just a handful of quickies along this line. Tips for living one day at a time. And that is, don't worry about being flawless. Let me ask this. Historically, and probably somewhat still, I struggle with perfectionism. Does anybody else have any of that perfectionistic kind of feeling? You just, oh man, you got everything right. And I used to fret about, I'd hand out a handout, I'd get a sermon, and there's always some word misspelled. The text has 2 letters, numbers transposed, this and that. And I finally realized, Paul, I never put out a flawless stuff. Quit worrying about it. Just do the best you can. People will say, all right, correct it here and there. In the olden days, when you used to write on a board, this was not dinosaur period because we had whiteboards at the time. It was in the West Campus building. And a number of you know the story. And I was preaching a lesson on family, and I wanted to tell how important women were. And so the sermon title was Women, the Crown of Her Husband. And so praise the Lord, just went great. Of course, you're writing on the board and squeak, squeak, squeak with the marker in different colors and such as that. And that's fine. Here's the outline. Nobody said a thing till I get to the back door, and one guy, maybe he was a visitor, he said, do you realize you misspelled a word up there? Where's that? He said, in your title. Look at that, and I'm trying to, oh my goodness. I misspelled crown. I left off the N. Women are the crow of her husband. Boy, so it's done. I can't fix it now. But there's always stuff, and we just tell ourselves, look, Ecclesiastes 7 verse 20, there's not a righteous man alive who continually does good and never sins. Nobody's perfect. Nothing we do in the physical realm is perfect. It can be pretty good, but flawless generally doesn't happen. Here's another thing to consider. Don't obsess over what people think of you. That is, what you think they think of you. Because Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 21 and 22 do not take seriously all the words spoken against you, lest you hear your servant cursing you. For you have also cursed others many times. Oh, that no good bum kind of thing. The older you get, the least that bothers you, because you really didn't take a pound to hide. I did in the early years. We just felt wounded. But after a while, it's, look, I'm here to serve God. Not everybody's going to like it. Not everybody liked Jesus. They didn't like what he did, who he was. They didn't like Paul, how he preached. It just is. I don't let that blow me off track. Don't be tormented over what you can't control. You know, yeah, but China is up in the ante on cyber warfare, and AI can be a big thing. You can have automated killer drones that the drones make the decision. I'm not in control of all that stuff. Ecclesiastes 1:15 talks about that which is crooked can't be straightened. That which is lacking can't be counted. I don't know how to fix all this stuff. That's God's business. So one I like to share with people fairly regularly is don't sweat the small stuff. Luke 10:41, when Jesus was at Mary and Martha's house, and Mary's listening to Jesus teach, and Martha's fretting about getting the dinner on the table. And he said, Martha, Martha, you are worried and bothered about many things. All kinds of stuff. I want you to know the fact. I went to my truck, my favorite blue Ford Ranger truck, and there were bird droppings on the hood. You say, so? Well, I don't like them. Paul, that's what birds do. They don't hunt you down. It just happens. You don't like it? Wash your car. Yeah, but there's slow service in the fast food restaurant, or waiting in line, or you're stalled in traffic, and whatever it is that just grates. I want to ask you, will it matter 100 years from now? Will it matter 1 week from now? Most of the time, no. If it does, well then, certainly pay some attention to that. And focus on what's really important. In Matthew 6:33, seek ye first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Or are we getting sidetracked? Are you drifting away from the Lord? Becoming lukewarm? If you are, you say, I'm back on track. Okay, I just needed to get that wake-up call and get going in the right direction. A few more things and we'll wrap up. Tips for living one day at a time. Today I'll display a positive attitude. You know, you hear the moaners and the groaners. How you doing? Oh, it could be worse. Nobody's listening anyhow. Blah, blah, blah. Philippians 4:13 said, I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. Display that, radiate that to others. Today, I'll not raise my voice, or be, meaning in anger, or be critical. Colossians chapter 4 and verse 6. Let your speech be always with grace. Today, fear won't control me, but Christ will. 1 John 4:18. That perfect love casts out fear. Today, I'll do a good deed and tell nobody about it. I'm going to bless somebody because it makes me feel good to do it, and it really helps them. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. I'll enjoy each changing season's beauty. That I love summer, but I really like fall. Winter's beautiful. I grew up in Ohio, lots of snow. I'm happy to be in Washington where we get a little bit of snow. If I want more snow, I can go to the mountains. I don't have to. We lived on a corner lot. Guess what the younger brother's job was? Man, shoveling for half my life, it felt like. 1 Timothy 6:17, he's given us richly all things to enjoy. But think about this. You say, yeah, but I'm older and this and that. In Psalm 92 and verse 14, it talks about the righteous, that they'll be full of sap and very green. You say, well, Paul, what's it like getting old? Well, for me, everybody has their own story. It's really cool. You're way smarter than you were as a kid. Why did you do that? It almost killed me. Man, that was stupid. Why'd you do it? Us boys, why? Because it sounded like a good idea at the time. It was dumb. You never do that. You're more confident in who you are. You know God, and you're going home. There's less emotional volatility. You're more at peace with yourself. There's senior discounts, and that's cool. You have long-time, trusted, true friends. There's blessings of children and grandchildren. You don't feel like you have to keep up with the Joneses. You don't even know the Joneses. And I tell you what, celebrities don't impress me at all. Do you know what happened on this guy divorced that woman and remarried him 5 times? I don't care. I'm not interested. It's got nothing to do with me. Enjoy every year, but the senior years can be a delight. And think about this. If I fail today, I'll do better tomorrow. Proverbs 24:16, the righteous falls 7 times and rises again. I can do better. Oh, I goofed that up. Okay, I know what I did. I don't have to grieve about it. Just move on. I like to hang with, and I don't mean, capital punishment, people who build me up. Proverbs 13:29, he who walks with the wise will be wise. I like strong, good, positive, encouraging friends. Why? That's the kind of person I want to be. You think about number 14, I'll consider my time with God as a life well spent. Psalm 84:10, better is a day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. He said, what we're doing is good. Thank you for coming. It is great. Have I prayed to God and then let it go? Passages that we appreciate, Philippians 4:6 and 7, that be anxious in nothing, but in all things through prayer and supplication, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God that passes all understanding shall keep you. God, that's your problem. I don't know how to handle all that. That's not my job. That's beyond me. And it should be 1 Peter 5:7 in there, is that casting all your burden on him. A few of you will remember when we were in West Campus, there was probably a lady then, younger than I am now, but she just seemed awfully old and all kind of health problems, Arcella Anderson. And she had heart problems, she had diabetes, and she had cancer, and was in a wheelchair. And whoever had come, she'd just wrap their, she'd all come on over here. She'd say, Paul, who's that baby over there? Person was 47 years old. Oh, come on, let me give you a just wonderful person. So she's in the hospital. It's toward the end of her life, within weeks. And Joy is the one who said, Arcella, we've been worrying about you. Arcella said, if you pray, why worry? If you worry, why pray? Well, okay, there you go. And it just encourages us, God, you're in control of everything. And I'm going to pray it, and I'm going to put it on your shoulders. And so I want you to think about, if you're here this morning and you're not a Christian, are you ready to surrender? Said, Jesus, I surrender. I surrender all. Do you believe in him? You willing to repent of your sins? Willing to confess your faith and be buried in the waters of baptism? We're going to be singing a song, Jesus, the Loving Shepherd. Let's be standing during this invitation song. If you'd like to respond in any way or like prayers from the congregation, let us know by coming forward. Brother Ben.